Poor mom counts change to buy her daughter. A hot dog, but a billionaire sees everything and does the unbelievable. The town square was crowded that Saturday afternoon. The sun shone brightly, illuminating the wooden benches and the constant movement of people. Children ran along the paths, parents pushed strollers, and couples walked slowly. In the middle of it all, there was a hot dog stand. Sarah stopped in front of it and took a deep breath. She opened her old handbag with its worn strap and searched for her wallet deep inside. When she found it, she opened it slowly, like someone afraid of what they were about to see. Change, only coins. She began to count, one by one. Pennies that barely made a sound in the palm of her hand. The smell of sausage and fried onions wafted from the cart, making her stomach clench. Beside her, Chloe held onto the hem of her mother's pants. She was 5 years old, with blonde hair that fell to her shoulders, and clear blue eyes that sparkled as she looked at the stand. "Mommy, I want a hot dog." "So I'm hungry," the voice came out softly, but full of hope. Sarah kept counting. It had to be enough. It needed to be enough. She counted once, twice, 3 times. It wasn't enough. She looked at the coins, then at the man behind the stand. He waited with a tired expression. He already knew the answer before she spoke. Sarah felt her chest tighten. She closed her hand around the coins and took a deep breath. She knelt down to Chloe's height and held the little girl's face. "We don't have enough money, sweetie." The phrase came out in a whisper. Low. Broken. Chloe lowered her head. She didn't cry. She didn't complain. She just stood quietly, holding her mother's hand tightly, and that hurt more than anything. Sarah stood up slowly, her legs feeling heavy. She put the coins back and took a step back. Her eyes stung, but she blinked quickly. She couldn't cry here. She turned to leave. "Excuse me." The voice came from behind. Sarah stopped and turned around. A man was standing a few feet away, tall, wearing a well-tailored grey suit jacket and an impeccable white shirt. His dark hair was slicked back. He had a serious but not harsh expression. He had heard everything. Sarah felt her face flush. Shame rose like a hot wave. She lowered her eyes and pulled Chloe closer. Daniel looked at the hot dog man and said firmly, "3 hot dogs, please, everything on them." The man nodded and began to prepare them. Sarah stood still, unsure what to do. She wanted to leave. She wanted to disappear, but her legs wouldn't obey. Daniel paid with a bill from his pocket and waited in silence. When the hot dogs were ready, he took the 3 wrapped in paper and turned to Sarah. He held out his hand. "Please accept them." Sarah looked at him, then at the hot dogs, then at Chloe. The little girl's eyes were wide, gleaming with hope and hunger. I can't accept," Sarah murmured. "Seriously. You don't have to." "Yes, you can," Daniel said calmly. "It's not a favor. It's just food. Everyone needs to eat." Chloe tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mommy?" Sarah looked down. Those blue eyes were pleading. It wasn't a whim. It was a necessity. She took a deep breath and accepted. "Thank you," she said, her voice choked. Daniel smiled lightly and handed one of the hot dogs directly to Chloe. The little girl took it with both hands. "Thank you, mister," she said, with a wide smile. Daniel knelt down to her height. "You're welcome, little one. What's your name?" "Chloe." "Nice to meet you, Chloe." "I'm Daniel." Chloe took a big bite and chewed with her eyes closed, savoring every piece. Daniel chuckled softly and stood up. Sarah still held the hot dog in her hand, but couldn't eat. She was looking at him, trying to understand. "Why did you do that?" she asked. Daniel put his hands in his pockets. "Because I could. And because, well, no one should go hungry." He spoke in a simple way, natural. Sarah felt a tear slide down, but wiped it away quickly. She didn't want to cry there. "Thank you, really. I'll manage to pay you back someday." "You don't need to. Daniel said, shaking his head. Seriously, it's not a debt. They stood in silence for a few seconds. The noise of the square continued all around, but there, in that space between the two, it seemed like time had stopped. Chloe tugged on Sarah's hand. "Mommy, eat yours. It's good." Sarah smiled for the first time and took a bite. It was good. Simple, but good. Daniel looked at the two of them and felt something strange in his chest, something he couldn't explain. It was as if this encounter was important, more than it seemed. "Do you live nearby?" he asked. Sarah hesitated. "A few blocks away, in the South End." Daniel nodded. "I work downtown. I'm a lawyer." Sarah looked at his suit jacket, at the watch on his wrist. She felt the enormous difference between their two worlds, his organized and secure, hers falling apart. "It must be nice to have a profession like that," she said without looking directly at him. "It has its days," Daniel replied with a half smile, "but not everything is as it seems." There was something in his voice, an honesty that Sarah hadn't expected. Chloe finished her hot dog and wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. Sarah laughed softly and cleaned the last bit of mustard with her thumb. "Mommy, can I go play over there?" She pointed to the playground across the square. Sarah looked and nodded. "Stay where I can see you, okay?" "Okay." Chloe ran off, light as the wind, her blonde hair bouncing. Sarah watched her with love and exhaustion. She was all she had. Daniel stood beside her, also watching. "She's beautiful," he said. "She is. She's all I have," Sarah replied in a low voice. Daniel felt the weight of that phrase. There was something there, something deep. Are you okay?" he asked carefully. Sarah gave a tired smile. "I'm trying to be." It wasn't a lie, nor the complete truth. It was just all she could say. Daniel nodded. He didn't insist. "Well, I need to go," he said, looking at his watch. "But it was nice meeting you both." "It was nice meeting you too," Sarah said, looking directly at him. "And thank you." Again. Daniel smiled and waved at Chloe, who was on the swing set. She waved back, excited. He started to walk away, moving slowly. But he stopped after a few steps and looked back. Sarah was still there, watching her daughter play. The wind moved her blonde hair. There was something about her, something he couldn't ignore. He shook his head, trying to push the thought away, and walked on. But he couldn't. All the way back home, the image of them wouldn't leave his mind. During his lonely dinner, before falling asleep, Sarah and Chloe, two strangers who, somehow, had stirred something inside him. He didn't know why. He just knew he wouldn't forget. Those blue eyes shining with hope, that tired smile of someone who fights every day, that little girl holding a hot dog as if it were the best thing in the world. Daniel lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. He thought about his life, organized, predictable, empty, and he thought about them, Sarah and Chloe. He turned over, closed his eyes, and tried to sleep, but he couldn't. The image of the two of them remained there, in his mind, in his heart. And something inside him said that this wouldn't be the last encounter. Monday arrived as it always did, with bright sun and the feeling that the day would be too long. Sarah woke up early. Even before the alarm clock rang, Chloe was still sleeping, hugging the old teddy bear she wouldn't let go of even for a bath. Sarah stayed there for a moment, just watching. The blonde hair spread on the pillow, the calm little face, the slightly parted lips. She took a deep breath and got up. She took a quick shower, dressed in the most presentable clothes she had, a slightly faded pair of black pants and a white blouse that had been washed so many times she barely remembered its original color. She tied her hair in a simple ponytail and looked in the mirror. She was tired. She looked tired, but she couldn't give up. She left a note for Chloe, who would stay with the neighbor downstairs until she returned. She grabbed her bag, put inside some resumes printed at the public library, and left. The first stop was a grocery store 3 blocks from home. They were hiring stock clerks. Sarah went in, asked to speak to the manager, and waited 20 minutes standing near the counter. When the man finally appeared, she handed him the resume with a smile. He glanced at it, too quickly to actually read. "We need someone with warehouse experience," he said, handing the paper back. "I learn fast," Sarah insisted. "I can start today." "Sorry, it won't work out." He turned his back and walked away. Sarah stood there, holding the resume back in her hand. She took a deep breath and left. The second stop was a clothing store. They had a hiring sign in the window. Sarah went in, talked to the clerk, and filled out an application form. "We'll be in touch," the young woman said, without looking her in the eye. Sarah knew what that meant. The third stop was a coffee shop. The fourth, a pharmacy. The fifth, a small restaurant that needed someone to wash dishes. "Do you have references?" the owner asked. "I do. I worked at a diner for almost 2 years." "Why did you leave?" Sarah hesitated. "I was let go." The man frowned. "I'll think about it and call you." He wouldn't call. Sarah knew it. She kept walking through the city, went into more stores, more restaurants, more establishments, handed out resumes, filled out forms, smiled even when she didn't feel like it. Every answer was the same. "We'll be in touch. We're not hiring right now. Sorry, the position is already filled." The sun was high now, burning her skin. Sarah sat on a park bench and took off her shoes for a moment. Her feet hurt. Her head was throbbing. She looked at her bag. She still had some resumes. She couldn't give up. She stood up again and kept going. When the sun began to set, Sarah finally returned home. Her legs were heavy, her throat dry, her heart tight. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step seeming higher than the last. She knocked on the neighbor's door and picked up Chloe, who jumped into her arms with a tight hug. "Mommy, you took so long." "Sorry, sweetie." Mommy was taking care of some things. "Did you get the job?" Sarah smiled, but it was a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Not yet, but I will soon." They went back to the apartment. Sarah opened the door and put her bag on the floor. The place was small. A living room, a bedroom, a tiny kitchen, but it was theirs. She went to the refrigerator and opened it. Almost empty. There was half a loaf of bread, some butter, a few eggs, and a piece of fruit that was too ripe. That was it. Sarah closed her eyes for a second and took a deep breath. "Mommy, what are we going to eat?" Chloe appeared in the kitchen, holding her teddy bear. "I'm going to make us scrambled eggs. It'll be a tasty dinner." "Again?" Sarah knelt down and held her daughter's face tenderly. "Tomorrow we'll eat something different, okay? I promise." Chloe nodded, but Sarah saw the disappointment in her eyes. She prepared dinner. 2 scrambled eggs, divided onto 2 plates, a piece of toast for each of them. Sarah put everything on the small living room table and sat down with Chloe. They ate in silence. Chloe chewed slowly, looking at her plate as if she were thinking about something. "Mommy, are you sad?" Sarah looked up, surprised. "No, sweetie. Why do you think that?" "Because you don't smile anymore." The words hit Sarah like a punch. She felt her eyes sting but held it in. "Mommy is just tired, that's all. But I'm not sad. I have you, right? That makes me happy." Chloe smiled, and that warmed Sarah's heart for a moment. After dinner, Sarah bathed Chloe, put her old pajamas on her and tucked her into bed. "Tell me a story," Chloe asked, snuggling under the covers. Sarah lay down beside her and began to tell a made-up story. A princess who lived in a castle and had a pet unicorn. Chloe loved unicorns. Slowly, the little girl's eyes began to close. Her breathing became slow, tranquil. Sarah stayed there, looking at her, so small, so innocent, so dependent on her. And Sarah was failing. She got up slowly, left the room and closed the door carefully. She went to the living room and sat on the old sofa. She put her hands over her face and finally let the tears fall. She cried softly, trying not to make a sound. She cried for the lack of a job, for the food that was running out, for the rent that was overdue, For the daughter who deserved much more than she could provide. She cried until she had no more tears. Afterward, she just sat there, in the dark, staring into nothing. Across town, Daniel was sitting on his apartment balcony. He held a cup of coffee, but hadn't even taken a sip. He just kept looking at the illuminated street below. He didn't know why, but he couldn't stop thinking about them. Sarah and Chloe, the way she had counted those coins, the shame on her face, the strength she tried to show even though she was broken inside. And Chloe, that blue-eyed girl, who had held the hot dog as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Daniel ran a hand through his hair and sighed. He had everything. A good job, a nice apartment, enough money, but he felt empty, and those two, who had almost nothing, seemed to have something he never did. Purpose, love, connection. He took a sip of the cold coffee and continued staring into nothing, thinking, feeling something he couldn't name, something that told him this encounter had been important, that those two women were going to change something in him. He just didn't know what. Yet Wednesday, Sarah was downtown again, more resumes in her bag, more feigned hope in her chest, more doors to knock on. Chloe was with her this time. The neighbor couldn't watch the little girl, so Sarah had no choice. She held her daughter's hand tightly as they walked along the busy sidewalk. "Mommy, are we going to eat something?" Chloe asked, looking at the diner windows. "Later, sweetie. Mommy needs to drop off some papers now." Chloe nodded, but Sarah saw the disappointment in the little girl's blue eyes. They entered another store. Sarah handed over the resume. The answer was the same as always. "We'll be in touch." They left and continued walking. The sun was strong, and Sarah felt the fatigue climbing up her legs. She stopped for a moment near a fountain in the main square and sat on the edge. "Rest a little bit here with me," she said to Chloe. The little girl sat beside her, swinging her legs. Sarah looked around. So many people, so much life happening, and she was here, just trying to survive. That's when she saw him, Daniel. He was on the other side of the square, walking with a briefcase under his arm. He wore a navy blue suit, impeccable as always. His dark hair shone under the sun. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. She didn't know if it was relief, shame, or something she couldn't name. He hadn't seen her yet. Sarah thought about getting up and leaving before he noticed her. She didn't want to look desperate. She didn't want him to think she was waiting for him. But it was too late. Daniel looked in their direction and stopped. For a second, he just stood there, watching. Then, a small smile appeared on his face. He changed direction and began to walk toward them. "Sarah," he said, arriving nearby. She stood up, trying to look more confident than she felt. "Hi, Daniel." "Hi," Chloe said, with a huge smile. "You're the hot dog, mister." Daniel laughed and knelt down to her height. "That's me. And you're Chloe, right? The girl who eats hot dogs with her eyes closed." Chloe laughed, shaking her head. "It's because it was so yummy." Daniel stood up and looked at Sarah. She looked tired, more so than the other day. Her eyes had a shadow that hadn't been there before. "Are you two okay?" he asked. Sarah hesitated but nodded. "Yes, just taking care of some things." Daniel looked at her bag, saw the papers sticking out the side, resumes. He understood. "Have you had lunch yet?" Sarah opened her mouth to answer, but Chloe was quicker. "Not yet. Mommy said we would eat later." Sarah felt her face flush. "Chloe," Daniel smiled. "Then you're having lunch with me." "I won't take no for an answer." "Daniel, I can't." "Again, you've already done too much." "I haven't done too much at all," he said firmly. "Besides, I was going to eat alone anyway. It would be much better to have company." Sarah looked at Chloe, whose eyes were shining with hope. She looked at Daniel, who waited with a sincere expression. She sighed. "Okay," Daniel smiled. "Great. I know a place nearby, good food and a quiet atmosphere." They began to walk. Chloe was in the middle, holding her mother's hand with one hand, and after a moment, without thinking, she took Daniel's hand with the other. He looked down, surprised. The small, warm hand in his, he felt something strange in his chest. something good. Sarah saw it and felt a mixture of gratitude and fear. Chloe was getting attached to him. What if he disappeared? What if it was just temporary kindness? But she didn't say anything. The restaurant was simple but clean. Wooden tables, checkered tablecloths, the smell of home-cooked food in the air. Daniel asked to sit near the window. Chloe was delighted with the illustrated menu. "Look, Mommy, they have a picture of pasta." Sarah smiled. "Do you want pasta?" "I do," Daniel ordered for the two of them. Pasta for Chloe, a full meal for Sarah, and another for himself. When the food arrived, Chloe ate heartily, talking between bites about everything she had seen on the street. Sarah ate slowly, trying not to show how hungry she was. Daniel noticed but didn't say anything. After Chloe finished, she asked to go to the restroom. Sarah stood up to go with her, but Daniel gestured. "I'll find out where it is and take her. You rest a little." Sarah hesitated but accepted. She was exhausted. Daniel took Chloe to the restroom, waited outside, and returned with her. The little girl was chattering about how good the soap smelled. When they returned to the table, Sarah was looking out the window, lost in thought. "Mommy's tired," Chloe said to Daniel, as if it were a secret. "I know," Daniel replied softly. "But we're going to help her rest, okay?" Chloe nodded seriously. After lunch, Daniel paid the bill before Sarah could protest. They walked out together and stood on the sidewalk for a moment. "Thank you," Sarah said, looking at him. Again. "You don't need to thank me every time," Daniel replied. "I like to help." There was silence. Sarah wanted to say something but didn't know what. Daniel took a deep breath. "Sarah, I know we barely know each other, but can I ask you something?" She nodded. "It's very hard, isn't it?" Sarah felt her eyes sting. She bit her lip and looked away. It's really hard. "Do you have family? Anyone who can help?" She shook her head. "No. It's just me and Chloe." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He looked at the little girl who was playing with a pebble on the ground, oblivious to the conversation. "And her father?" "He's not part of her life, never has been." Sarah's voice was firm, but there was pain there. Old pain. Daniel nodded. He didn't insist. "Look, I don't know how, but I'm going to find a way to help you both." Sarah looked up, surprised. "Daniel." "No, wait. I know you don't know me well. I know this seems strange, but I can't just forget and move on. You two. I can't explain it, but I want to help. Truly." Sarah felt the tears coming. She blinked quickly, trying to hold them back. "Why are you doing this?" Daniel shrugged. "Because I can, and because maybe I need this just as much as you do." There was something in his voice, something vulnerable. Sarah didn't know what to say. Daniel looked at his watch. "Do you live far from here?" "About 40 minutes on foot. Let me drive you." "Daniel, you don't need to." "I know, but I want to." Sarah looked at Chloe. The little girl was tired. She herself was exhausted. "Okay." They walked to the parking lot. Daniel opened the back car door for Chloe, who climbed in excitedly. Sarah got in the front. The ride was quiet. Chloe dozed off in the back seat. Daniel drove carefully without rushing. "What do you work as?" he asked. "I used to work at a diner. I was let go a few weeks ago." "And you've been looking since then?" "Every day." Daniel gripped the steering wheel. "You'll get there. I'm sure of it." Sarah looked at him. She wanted to believe it. When they reached her building, Daniel parked and turned off the car. "Is this it?" "It is." He looked at the building. Old, needing paint. But it was their home. Sarah woke Chloe carefully and got out. Daniel got out too. "Thank you for everything," Sarah said. "You're welcome." Chloe came closer and hugged Daniel's leg. "Bye, mister. You're nice." Daniel laughed and ran a hand through her hair. "Bye, Chloe. You're nice too." Sarah took her daughter's hand and began to climb the steps. Daniel stood still, watching. "Sarah," he called. She turned around. "I'll be back, okay? I'm going to find a way to help you both." Sarah didn't answer. She just nodded, her eyes shining. She walked up with Chloe and went into the building. Daniel stood there for another minute, looking at the closed door. Then he went back to his car. But he knew that this wouldn't be the last time. He was going to come back, and he was going to keep his promise. Saturday morning. Sarah was in the kitchen, looking at the open refrigerator, almost empty again. There was a piece of cheese left, 2 eggs, and half a loaf of bread. It had to last until Monday. She closed the door and leaned her forehead against the cold metal. She took a deep breath, trying to push away the tightness in her chest. The electricity bill had arrived. The rent was overdue, and she still hadn't managed to get a job. "Mommy, what are we going to do today?" Chloe appeared in the kitchen, barefoot, with wrinkled pajamas and her teddy bear under her arm. Sarah turned around and smiled, hiding her worry. "I don't know yet, sweetie. What do you want to do?" "Can we draw?" "Of course. I'll get the colored pencils." They sat on the living room floor, and Sarah spread out the sheets of paper she still had. Chloe began to draw a house with a huge garden full of colorful flowers. Sarah drew beside her, but her mind was elsewhere. How was she going to pay the rent? How was she going to buy food? The interviews led to nothing. Days went by, and she felt like she was losing the fight. Each morning was harder than the last. That's when there was a knock at the door. Sarah stood up, frowning. She wasn't expecting anyone. She never expected anyone. She wiped her hands on her pants and went to the door. She opened it slowly and stopped. Daniel was there, holding a large wicker basket in his hands. He was dressed more casually than the other times. Dark jeans, a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to the elbows, sneakers. His hair was still neat, but there was something different about him. He seemed more relaxed, more approachable. "Daniel," Sarah said, her voice filled with surprise. "Hi," he said, with a slightly shy smile that she hadn't seen before. "Sorry to show up unannounced. I brought something for you both." He held up the basket, and Sarah looked at it. It was full. She could see bread, fruits, cans, and boxes spilling over the top. She felt her throat tighten immediately. "Daniel, I can't accept this." "Yes, you can," he said with gentle firmness. "And you will accept it, because I already bought everything, and if you don't take it, it will spoil, and that would be a waste." Before Sarah could answer, Chloe appeared behind her, curious. "Hi, Daniel." "Hi, Chloe," he said, kneeling down a little to be at her height. "How are you?" "Good, we were drawing." "Really, that's great, and look, I brought some things for you." "What's in there?" "Should we take a look?" He looked at Sarah, waiting for permission. Sarah hesitated. Part of her wanted to refuse. She wanted to maintain her dignity. But another part, the part that was tired of seeing her daughter hungry, knew she couldn't say no. She took a step aside. "Come in." Daniel entered the small apartment and placed the basket on the living room table. Chloe immediately ran to it, her eyes shining with curiosity. "You can open it," Daniel said, smiling at her. Chloe began to take things out, one by one, carefully, as if each item were a treasure. "Mommy, there's bread, there are apples, there's—" She picked up a package of cream-filled cookies and shouted with joy. "There are even cookies. Mommy, look, chocolate cookies." Sarah put her hand to her mouth. She felt her eyes fill with tears she couldn't hold back. Everything was there. Rice, beans, pasta, tomato sauce, oil, milk, eggs, cheese, and butter, fresh fruits, vegetables, meat, seasoned chicken, and at the bottom of the basket, chocolates and cookies for Chloe. Daniel had thought of everything. Sarah looked at him. Daniel was standing near the door, hands in his pockets, watching their reaction with a gentle expression. "Why did you do this?" she asked, her voice choked. "Because I wanted to," he answered, simple and direct. "And because you both deserve it. It's not a favor, Sarah. It's care." A tear rolled down Sarah's face. She wiped it away quickly, but others followed. She turned her face, embarrassed, but Daniel approached. "You don't need to hide it," he said softly. "It's okay." Sarah took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. "I don't know what to say. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to say anything. And you don't need to thank me." Chloe tugged on his sleeve, holding a box of juice. "Are you staying for lunch? Mommy is a really good cook." Daniel looked at Sarah, waiting for an answer. She hesitated for only a second before nodding. "Stay, please. It's the least I can do." He smiled, and there was something genuine in that smile. "Then I'll stay." Sarah began to organize the groceries. Daniel helped without being asked, taking things to the refrigerator and the small kitchen cabinets. Chloe stayed between the two, offering opinions on where to put everything. "The chocolate goes on the top shelf, Mommy, in the high cabinet. Otherwise, I'll eat it all at once." Sarah and Daniel laughed together, and for a moment, everything felt light. When they finished putting everything away, Sarah began to prepare lunch. Nothing sophisticated, but it was real food. Fluffy rice, seasoned beans, the chicken Daniel had brought already marinated, and a simple salad with tomato and lettuce. The smell of the food filled the small apartment, and Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just relief. It was joy. They sat at the table. Chloe ate heartily, talking non-stop about everything and nothing. She told Daniel about the drawings she had made, about the kitten she saw on the street, about the dream she had with unicorns. Sarah ate slowly, savoring every bite as if it were the first decent meal in weeks. Because it was. Daniel watched the two of them. There was something deeply comforting in that, something he hadn't felt in a long time. The feeling of belonging, of being exactly where he should be. After lunch, while Sarah washed the dishes, Chloe dragged Daniel to the living room. "Come draw with me." He looked at Sarah, who was facing the sink. "You can go," she said, looking over her shoulder with a smile. "She won't leave you alone until you draw something." Daniel sat on the floor next to Chloe. She handed him paper and colored pencils with all the seriousness in the world. "Draw a castle." "A castle," Daniel laughed. "I don't draw very well, you know." "It's okay. I'll teach you," Chloe said, with the confidence of an experienced teacher. And she taught him. With all the seriousness of a 5-year-old, she explained how to make the towers, the windows, the big door, even the flags on top. Daniel followed the instructions, laughing at her gentle corrections. "No, Uncle Daniel. The tower has to be taller. Castles have tall towers." Uncle Daniel. She had called him Uncle. He felt something tighten in his chest, something good, something he didn't know he was missing. Sarah finished the dishes and stood at the entrance to the living room, watching the scene. Chloe was laughing, completely at ease. Daniel was smiling, relaxed in a way she hadn't seen before. He wasn't the serious lawyer in a suit jacket. He was just him. The scene seemed so natural, so right. It looked like a family. The thought came out of nowhere and startled Sarah. She shook her head quickly, as if she could shake the thought out, and returned to the kitchen. The afternoon passed slowly, like a calm river. Daniel stayed. He was in no hurry to leave. He played with Chloe, putting together a 50-piece puzzle she had received for a birthday. Then he helped Sarah fix a sink faucet that had been dripping for weeks. "You know about plumbing?" Sarah asked, surprised. "A little bit. My grandfather was a plumber. He taught me a few things when I was a kid," Daniel replied, tightening the valve with a wrench he found in Sarah's old toolbox. "I didn't know that." "There's a lot you don't know about me," he said, looking at her with a half-smile. "Maybe I want to know," Sarah replied, without thinking. Their eyes met and held, for a second longer than they should have. Sarah looked away first, feeling her face warm up. When the sun began to set, painting the sky orange through the small living room window, Chloe yawned. "Are you sleepy?" Sarah asked, stroking her daughter's blonde hair. "A little bit. Go to your room to rest. I'll come check on you soon, okay?" Chloe stood up, dragging her teddy bear by the arm. She went to Daniel and hugged him tightly. "Thank you for the things. And for playing with me. You're nice." Daniel felt his heart clench in a way he hadn't expected. "You're welcome, little one. Thank you for letting me draw with you. It was a lot of fun. Can you come back?" Daniel looked at Sarah, who was watching from the kitchen doorway. "If your mom lets me, I'll come back." "Mommy, can he?" Chloe asked, her blue eyes shining. Sarah smiled. "He can." Chloe cheered softly and walked out to her room, closing the door gently. Sarah and Daniel were left alone in the living room. Silence fell, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was tranquil, natural. Sarah sat on the old sofa, pulling her legs up under her. Daniel sat down beside her, leaving a respectful space between them. "Thank you," Sarah said, looking at her hands in her lap, "for everything, for the food, for staying, for playing with her, for caring." "You don't have to thank me," Daniel replied sincerely. "I want to be here." "But why?" she asked, turning her body to face him. "We barely know each other. You have your life, your job, your things. Why are you doing this for us?" Daniel was silent for a moment, thinking about the right answer, but he realized he didn't need the right answer. He needed honesty. "Because I don't know how to explain it well. Since that day in the square, I can't stop thinking about the two of you, and I wondered why it affected me so much. I think it's because my life is empty, Sarah." He looked at her. "I have everything I'm supposed to want. A good job, enough money, a nice apartment, a car, but there's no purpose. There's no true connection. It's just work, home, sleep, wake up, work again. A cycle that means nothing." He took a deep breath. "And when I saw the two of you that day, I saw something real. Something that matters. You fighting for your daughter, Chloe loving you even though you had nothing. You have something I never had, and I wanted to be a part of it. Even if just a little bit." Sarah felt her eyes sting again. She hadn't expected this honesty, this vulnerability. "You don't know how much that means to me," she said, her voice breaking. "I was close to giving up, on everything, on looking for a job, on trying, on living. I was just surviving, and barely." Daniel moved a little closer. "You don't need to give up. You are strong, Sarah, stronger than you imagine. I don't feel strong, but you are. Anyone who manages to take care of a child alone, without help, without resources, and still keeps her happy and loved, that's not just strength, that's pure love." Sarah let out a sad laugh, wiping away her tears. "Sometimes it feels like I'm just trying not to sink, and every day is harder than the last." "Then let me help hold you up," Daniel said, with a gentle intensity in his voice, not out of pity, not out of charity, but because I want to, because you two make me feel like my life has meaning." Sarah looked at him, truly looked, and she saw sincerity. She saw care. She saw something she hadn't seen in anyone for a long time. "Okay," she said, so softly it was almost a whisper. They were silent again, closer now. Sarah could feel his warmth beside her. She could feel the safety he brought just by being there. "And you?" she asked, breaking the silence. "Why is your life empty? You have so much." Daniel gave a sad half-smile. "Because I spent so much time building a career, an image, that I forgot to build a life. I work 12 to 14 hours a day. I go home, eat something frozen, sleep, wake up, and do it all again. There's no one waiting for me. There's no purpose beyond earning money and climbing the career ladder. And for what? At the end of the day, I'm still alone. But you have success." "Success doesn't warm the house when it's cold," he said, looking at her. "It doesn't hug you when you're sad. It doesn't laugh with you. It doesn't make you feel like you matter. Success is empty when you have no one to share it with." Sarah understood perfectly. They were opposites in many things, but at this point they were in the same place. Alone, struggling, looking for something more. "Do you have family?" she asked. "I do. My parents live in another state. They wanted me to follow their path, medicine. When I chose law, they were disappointed. We talk sometimes, birthdays, holidays, but it's superficial. There's no real connection. I'm sorry. You don't have to be. I made my choices, and I don't regret them. But sometimes, it's lonely. Sarah placed her hand over his, without thinking. The touch was natural, instinctive. Daniel looked at their intertwined hands and then back at her. "Thank you for trusting me," he said. "Thank you for truly caring." They stayed like that for a long moment, close, connected, without rush, without pressure, just together. Then Daniel looked at his watch and sighed. "I should go. It's getting late." Sarah felt a pang of disappointment, but nodded. You can come back whenever you want. The door is always open. I can, really. You can. Chloe will love it, and I will too." Daniel smiled, a real smile, which reached his eyes and made them shine. "Then I'll come back, I promise." They walked to the door. Daniel opened it, but stopped before leaving. "Sarah, if you need anything at all, anytime, call me, okay?" He took a card from his pocket and handed it to her. Sarah took it, looked at the printed name and put it away carefully. "Okay." Daniel nodded and left. Sarah closed the door slowly and leaned against it, holding the card against her chest. For the first time in a long time, she didn't just feel despair, she felt hope, and something else. Something she was afraid to name, but it was growing, silent, real, and impossible to ignore. Tuesday, Sarah returned home after another day of unsuccessful job searching. She climbed the stairs slowly, feeling the weight of exhaustion in every muscle. When she reached her floor's hallway, she saw an envelope taped to the door. Her heart sank even before she picked up the paper. She tore the envelope off the door, entered the apartment, and closed the door behind her. Chloe was still at the neighbor's house. At least she wouldn't see this. Sarah opened the envelope with trembling hands. Eviction notice. The large red letters at the top seemed to scream. She read the entire document, every word cutting like a knife. 3 months of overdue rent. 15 days to vacate the property or pay the full outstanding amount. Otherwise, legal action would be taken. Sarah sat on the sofa and placed the paper on her lap. She just stared at it, unable to fully process it. They were going to lose their home. They were going to be on the street, she and Chloe. She started to struggle for breath. Her chest tightened. Her hands were cold with sweat. Where would they live? How was she going to protect her daughter? What was she going to do? She put her hands over her face and tried to take a deep breath, but the air wouldn't come in properly. Panic rose like a giant wave about to swallow everything. Sarah stood up, walked around the living room, came back, and read the notice again. As if the words would be different on the second reading, as if it were a mistake. But it wasn't. It was real. She needed $3,000 in 15 days, and she had nothing, no job, no hope. The tears came quickly, hot, desperate. Sarah cried there, alone, feeling like everything was finally collapsing. That's when there was a knock at the door. Sarah wiped her face quickly, trying to compose herself. She put the eviction notice inside the bag that was on the table and took a deep breath. She opened the door. It was Daniel. He had his suit jacket over his arm, his tie loosened, and he was holding a paper bag. "Hi," he said, with a smile. "I brought some treats for Chloe. Those gummy candies she liked the other day." Sarah tried to smile back, but couldn't make it look natural. "Hi, Daniel. Come in." He stepped inside and immediately realized something was wrong. Sarah was pale. Her eyes were red. Her posture was tense. "Are you okay?" he asked, placing the bag on the table. "I am just tired," she lied. badly. Daniel didn't believe her, but he didn't insist. Not yet. Is Chloe here? No. She's at the neighbor's house. I'm going to pick her up soon. Do you want me to go get her? You don't need to. But thank you. Uncomfortable silence. Sarah was trying to maintain her composure, but she was failing. Daniel looked around. Something was different. There was a tension in the air, and then he saw it. Sarah's bag was open on the table, papers spilling out, bills, envelopes. "Let me get some water," Sarah said, going toward the kitchen. Daniel stood there. He didn't want to invade her privacy, but something made him look at the table again. One of the papers was slipping out of the bag. He instinctively reached out, catching it before it fell, and then he saw it. Eviction notice. The red letters jumped out at him. He read quickly, 3 months overdue, 15 days to vacate. Daniel's heart sank. He looked toward the kitchen. Sarah was turned away, filling a glass with water, unaware of anything. He quickly put the paper back, exactly as it was. But now he knew. Sarah came back with the glass, took a sip, still avoiding his gaze. "Are you sure everything is okay?" Daniel asked carefully. "I am, just..." It was a tough day. She wasn't going to tell him. She wasn't going to ask for help. Pride, shame, fear, maybe all of it together. Daniel understood, and he wasn't going to force it. "Okay," he said softly. "If you need to talk, I'm here." "I know, thank you." He stayed a few more minutes, trying to lighten the mood. He talked about random things, about his work, about a funny case that had happened at the office. Sarah responded automatically, but he could see her mind was far away. When he finally left, Sarah closed the door and leaned against it. She took a deep breath, feeling the crushing weight of everything. Daniel went downstairs and stopped on the ground floor. He stood there for a moment, thinking, eviction notice, 3 months overdue, 15 days. Sarah and Chloe were going to be on the street. No, he wasn't going to let that happen. Daniel pulled out his cell phone and dialed a number. "Hello, Marcus? It's me. I need you to do me a favor, urgent." The next morning, Sarah woke up with a heavy body. She had slept poorly, nightmares of Chloe crying, of suitcases being thrown into the street, of police knocking on the door. She made a weak coffee and sat at the table. The eviction notice was there, staring at her. She had read it about 10 times during the night. 15 days. What was she going to do? That's when there was a knock at the door. Sarah frowned. Too early for visitors. She got up and opened it. Daniel. He was serious, but there was something different in his eyes. A determination. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning. Is everything okay? Can I come in?" "Of course." He entered, and Sarah closed the door, confused. Did something happen? Daniel took a deep breath and turned to her. "Sarah, I need to tell you something." His tone was serious. Sarah felt a chill in her stomach. "What?" "Yesterday, when I was here, a paper fell out of your bag. Accidentally, I saw it." Sarah froze. She understood immediately. "Daniel, I saw the eviction notice." She closed her eyes, feeling the shame rise like a wave. She turned her face away, unable to look at him. "I didn't want you to know." "I know, but now I know, and I can't pretend I didn't see it." Sarah felt the tears coming. "I'm going to solve this. I'm going to..." "You don't have to worry anymore," Daniel interrupted firmly. She looked at him, confused. "What?" "I've already taken care of everything." Sarah blinked, not understanding. "What do you mean?" "The rent. The 3 months overdue. I paid it. Everything is sorted out." The world stopped. Sarah stared at him, trying to process the words. "You..." "What? I paid the back rent. I spoke with the landlord this morning. You don't have to worry anymore. The house is yours. You won't be evicted." Sarah felt her legs give way. She grabbed the edge of the table. "You can't have done that, Daniel. That's $3,000. I know how much it is. That's a lot of money. For you, maybe. Not for me. Sarah shook her head in shock. I can't accept it. I'll pay you back every penny, I swear. Sarah, you don't need to. I do, she insisted vehemently. I can't just accept you paying that without paying it back. I'll get a job. I'll pay it all back. Daniel stepped closer and held her shoulders, gentle but firm. You will get a job. And when you do, if you really want to, you can pay me back slowly. No rush, no interest. But now, at this moment, you have a home, and that's what matters. Sarah started to cry. She couldn't hold it in anymore. She cried with relief, with gratitude, with shame, with everything all at once. Why are you doing this? She asked between sobs. Because I care about you both, because you deserve to have a safe roof over your heads, and because I can't just stand by and watch you suffer. Sarah put her hands over her face, trying to compose herself, but it was impossible. Daniel pulled her into a hug. She didn't resist. She leaned her face against his chest and cried out all the fear, all the tension, all the accumulated desperation. He held her tightly without saying anything, just letting her break down. That's when the bedroom door opened. Chloe appeared, rubbing her eyes, her teddy bear dragging on the floor. Mommy? Sarah moved away from Daniel quickly, wiping her face. Hi, sweetie. Good morning. Chloe saw Daniel and smiled. Uncle Daniel, you came in the morning. I did, little one. I brought some good news for you both. What news? Sarah looked at Daniel, unsure what to say. Daniel knelt down to Chloe's height. Your mommy was worried about some bills, but I helped her sort them out. You won't have to leave here. This house is still yours. Chloe didn't understand completely, but she understood enough. She understood it was something good. She jumped up and hugged Daniel tightly. Thank you, Uncle Daniel. You're the best. Daniel felt his heart melt. He hugged the little girl back, squeezing gently. Sarah watched the scene, her hands over her chest. For the first time in months, she breathed. She breathed a sigh of relief. She breathed without the crushing weight of fear. She breathed knowing that, at least for now, they were safe. Daniel stood up and looked at Sarah. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Something deep. Something that went beyond gratitude. Thank you, Sarah said, her voice breaking. I have no words to thank you. You don't need words, Daniel replied. Just let me be a part of your lives. It's all I want. Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Chloe tugged on Daniel's hand. Do you want to have breakfast with us? Daniel looked at Sarah, who smiled and nodded. I'd love to, he said. They sat at the table. Sarah made coffee, toast, and put out the gummy candies Daniel had brought the day before. Chloe ate excitedly, talking non-stop. Sarah ate slowly, still processing everything, still trying to believe it was real. Daniel watched the two of them, and he knew he had made the right decision. It wasn't about money, it was about them. It was about protecting the two people who, in such a short time, had become the most important in his life. And he was going to continue protecting them, no matter what. A few days later, Daniel stopped by to visit. It had become routine. He would show up after work, bring something for dinner, play with Chloe, talk with Sarah. But that night, something was different. Sarah was quiet, quieter than normal. Chloe had just fallen asleep, and the two of them were sitting on the sofa, but the silence between them was heavy. Daniel noticed. Is everything okay? He asked. Sarah looked at her hands in her lap. I need to talk to you about something. Her tone made Daniel's stomach clench. Sure. What is it? Sarah took a deep breath as if preparing herself. Daniel, I'm very grateful for everything you've done, for the food, for the rent, for being here with us. You saved us. Truly. But, Daniel felt the but coming. But I can't continue like this, he frowned. Continue how? Depending on you, Sarah said, finally looking at him. I need to work, Daniel. I need to have my own money. I need to be able to support my daughter by myself. Sarah, you're looking for a job every day. I know that. "And I still haven't gotten anything," she said, with frustration in her voice. "But even when I do, I can't accept you continuing to pay for everything. It's not right." "Why is it not right?" "I want to help, because I don't want to be a burden," she replied firmly. "I don't want you to feel like you need to take care of me, that you have an obligation. I need to be independent. I need to know that I can do this alone." Daniel felt something hurt in his chest. "You are not a burden, never have been, and I don't do this out of obligation." "I know. But even so, I need this. I need to regain my dignity, my self-worth." She paused, the words coming out with difficulty. "I spent so much time feeling useless, like a failure, unable to take care of my own daughter, and when you showed up and fixed everything, I was relieved, but I also felt even smaller." "Sarah, let me finish," she asked, raising her hand. "I know you don't do this to diminish me. I know you're good, that you care, but I need to know I'm capable, that I can work, earn money, pay my bills, that I can be a mother and a woman without needing someone to save me all the time." Daniel was silent. He understood. Of course, he understood, but it hurt. "I understand," he said, his voice low. "And you're right. You deserve to feel like you have control over your life. Thank you for understanding, but..." Now it was his turn to hesitate. "But I don't want you to think I'm doing this to control you, or to make you feel inferior. I do it because I care a lot." Sarah looked at him. There was something in Daniel's eyes, something deep. "I know," she said softly. "And I don't want to stop being in your lives just because you got a job," he continued. "I'm not here because of dependency. I'm here because I want to be." The air became charged. Both of them knew there was something more there, something unsaid, something growing between them that neither of them had the courage to name. "Daniel," Sarah began, but didn't know how to continue. "I know," he said before she had to explain. "I know it's complicated. I know you're afraid. I am too." "Afraid of what?" He looked at her, straight into her eyes. "Of getting too attached. Of you realizing you don't want this. Of Chloe getting used to me and me having to leave. Of feeling things that maybe you don't feel." Sarah felt her heart race. He had put into words exactly what she was feeling. "I'm also afraid," she confessed, "of getting used to you, of letting Chloe get attached, of depending on you emotionally and you realizing that this isn't what you want, that we are just a project for you." "A good deed." "You are not a project," Daniel said vehemently. You are the most important people in my life right now, and that scares me because it happens so fast. But it's real. I know it is." Sarah felt her eyes sting. "Daniel, I can't allow myself to feel what I'm starting to feel if it's not going to last." "And what are you starting to feel?" She looked away. "You know what I'm feeling." "I need to hear it," he said, moving a little closer. Sarah took a deep breath. "I'm starting to depend on you, not just financially, but emotionally. I wait for you to arrive. I think about you during the day. So I see Chloe call you uncle, and my heart aches because I wish you were more than that, and that terrifies me." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "Why does it terrify you?" "Because I can't go through this again," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't allow myself to love someone and have that person leave. I can't handle it. And Chloe even less." "I'm not going to leave," Daniel said, taking her hand. "You can't promise that." "I can, and I promise." Sarah shook her head. "You don't understand. You have a life, a career, freedom. And I have a daughter, debts, problems. At some point you'll realize this is too heavy." "Sarah, look at me." She looked. "You are not heavy. Chloe is not heavy. You are the best thing that has happened to me, and I'm not saying that lightly. My life was empty before I met you. Now, it has meaning." Sarah wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to. But I still need to work, she said, returning to the initial point. I need to know I can do it alone. Not because I don't trust you, but because I need to trust myself. Daniel nodded, slowly letting go of her hand. I understand, and I'll respect that. Silence fell again, but now it was different. It wasn't comfortable. It was tense, charged with unsaid things. So, what do we do? Sarah asked. I don't know, Daniel admitted. I don't want to step away. But I also don't want to suffocate you or make you feel like you don't have control over your life. I don't want you to step away, Sarah said quickly. I need space to find myself, to achieve things on my own. And I'll give you that space, he said, even though it hurt. They stayed there, sitting side by side, but with an emotional distance that wasn't there before. Both wanting to be close, both afraid of what that meant. I should go, Daniel said, standing up. Sarah stood up too. Daniel, I don't want you to think I'm not grateful, or that I don't care. I know, he said, turning to her. I know, Sarah, and I understand truly. She nodded but felt a lump in her throat. Daniel walked to the door. Sarah followed him. He opened the door, but stopped before leaving. I'll keep coming over, if you let me, but without pressure, without expectations, just as a friend, if that's what you need right now. Thank you, Sarah said, her voice weak. Daniel nodded and left. Sarah closed the door and leaned against it. She felt the tears coming but held them back. She had done the right thing. She had set boundaries. She had defended her independence. So why did it hurt so much? On the other side of the door, Daniel walked down the stairs slowly. He got into his car and sat there without starting the engine. He understood Sarah perfectly. But it hurt. It hurt to want to be close to someone and know he needed to pull back. It hurt to start loving someone and have to hide it, because he knew now. He knew what he was feeling. He was falling in love with her. And he didn't know if she felt the same way, or if she ever would. He started the car and drove away, but his heart stayed behind, with her, always with her. A week had passed since that difficult conversation. Daniel kept visiting, but something had changed. There was a distance between them now, cordial but distant. He played with Chloe, helped with little things, but didn't stay as long. He didn't talk as much with Sarah. He respected the space she had asked for, but it was killing both of them. That Thursday night, Daniel showed up with pizza. Chloe cheered, and the three of them had dinner together. The little girl chattered away, filling the uncomfortable silence between the adults. After dinner, Chloe went to her room to play. Sarah and Daniel stayed in the living room, cleaning the table. Did you get any responses from the interviews? Daniel asked, trying to make conversation. No, Sarah replied, cut with frustration. Nothing. It's always the same thing. Either they want references, or they want recent experience, or... She stopped, biting her lip. Or what? Daniel insisted, noticing the hesitation. Sarah sighed, putting the plates in the sink. Or they call my last job and the son of a gun speaks badly about me. Daniel frowned. Your last boss? Yes. He can't do that. It's illegal to give negative references without basis. Sarah gave a bitter laugh. He doesn't care about what's legal or not. Daniel moved closer. Sarah, what happened at that job? You never really told me. She tensed up. She turned her back, pretending to be busy washing the dishes. There's not much to tell. I worked at a diner. I was let go. End of story. That wasn't all, Daniel said, with gentle firmness. I see it on your face every time you talk about it. Something happened. Sarah stopped washing the dishes. She stood still, her back to him, gripping the sponge tightly. Sarah, Daniel insisted, softer now. You can trust me. She took a deep breath. The tears came even before the words. He humiliated me, she said, her voice low and shaky. Every day, in front of everyone. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. How so? Sarah turned around, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. My boss. Richard. He would yell at me for anything. If I took 2 extra seconds to serve someone, he'd yell. If I got an order wrong, he'd humiliate me in front of the customers. He said I was stupid, incompetent, that I was lucky to have that job. Her voice was breaking, but she continued. He made me work overtime and didn't pay me. He said I had to compensate for the mistakes I made. He took the tips customers left. He said it was to cover the losses I caused. Daniel clenched his hands into fists. Sarah, and I put up with it, she continued, the tears flowing freely now. I put up with everything because I needed that job. I had bills to pay, a daughter to feed. I couldn't just leave. How long did you work there? Almost 2 years, Sarah said, sobbing. 2 years enduring yelling, humiliations, constant pressure. I would cry in the bathroom during my shift. I'd come home destroyed. But I needed the money. Daniel moved closer, but she raised her hand, asking for space. She needed to finish. Until one day, I was tired, exhausted. I had worked 10 hours straight, and he told me to work overtime again. I said I couldn't, that I needed to pick up Chloe, and he yelled at me in front of everyone, said I was a horrible employee, that I didn't deserve to be there, and he fired me, right there. No notice, no back pay, nothing. Sarah leaned against the sink, sobbing. I left there with nothing. No back wages, no vacation pay, no severance, nothing. And when I tried to claim my rights, he threatened me. He said if I tried anything, he would make sure I never got a job anywhere again. And he kept his word. Every time someone calls there asking for a reference, he speaks badly about me. Daniel was trembling, with anger, with outrage. Tell me his name, he said, his voice low and controlled. Sarah looked at him, seeing the intensity in his eyes. Daniel, tell me his name and the name of the diner. It won't do any good. Sarah, he said, moving closer and holding her shoulders. Tell me. She took a deep breath. Richard Morrison. The diner is called Joe's Diner. Downtown. Daniel let go of her and grabbed his phone. What are you going to do? Sarah asked, frightened. What should have been done a long time ago, he replied, already dialing on his phone. In the following days, Daniel worked, and he worked hard. He went to the diner, but he didn't go inside. He observed from a distance. He saw the movement, the employees, the owner yelling at someone in the kitchen. Then he started to investigate. He used his contacts, his experience as a lawyer, and went looking for information. He talked to former employees. It wasn't hard to find them. The diner's turnover rate was high. Many people had been fired the same way Sarah was. He wrote down everything. Every statement, every story of abuse, every irregularity, unpaid overtime, stolen tips, yelling, humiliations, unjustified dismissals, lack of proper employee registration. Daniel gathered evidence, documents, testimonies, bank records that showed the owner was embezzling money. And then he filed a formal lawsuit. It wasn't just a labor lawsuit. It was a lawsuit for moral harassment, for tax evasion, for misappropriation, for various labor violations. Daniel used the full weight of the law. He used every resource he had. He pressured. He investigated. He left no stone unturned. Richard Morrison tried to defend himself. He hired a lawyer. He tried to discredit the witnesses. He tried to intimidate. But it didn't work. Daniel was better, much better. He built a solid, irrefutable case and presented everything to the court. 2 weeks later, Daniel showed up at Sarah's apartment. It was late afternoon. Chloe was playing in the bedroom. Sarah opened the door and was surprised to see him there with a folder of documents in his hand. Daniel, is everything okay? Can I come in? He asked, man, with a half smile. Of course. He entered and placed the folder on the table. I need to show you something. Sarah approached, curious and apprehensive. Daniel opened the folder and took out several documents. Over the last 2 weeks, I investigated your former boss and his diner. Sarah's eyes widened. You. What? I talked to former employees. I gathered evidence of all the irregularities, unpaid overtime, stolen tips, moral harassment, illegal dismissals, and I filed a formal lawsuit against him. Sarah covered her mouth with her hands. Daniel, you didn't have to. Yes, I did, he interrupted firmly. He humiliated you. He exploited you. He took everything from you and got away with it. That couldn't continue. He picked up one of the documents and showed it to her. The court analyzed the case, and the decision came out yesterday. Sarah took the paper with trembling hands. She read the first lines. Sentence in favor of the claimant. She continued reading in disbelief. Richard Morrison was ordered to pay all overdue overtime, all misappropriated tips, compensation for moral damages, and all severance pay that was not paid. The total amount was highlighted at the end of the document, $15,000. Sarah sat down and unable to stand. I can't believe it. Daniel knelt down in front of her. You won, Sarah. You're going to receive everything they owe you, and more. You deserve justice, and you finally got it. Sarah started to cry, not from sadness, from relief, from shock, from gratitude. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. How did you do this? I did my job, Daniel said with a smile, and I did it with pleasure. That man didn't deserve to get away with it. Sarah looked at him, her eyes full of tears. Thank you. Thank you for believing in me, for fighting for me. Always, Daniel said. Chloe came out of the bedroom at that moment, holding her teddy bear. Mummy, why are you crying? Sarah wiped her tears quickly and opened her arms. Come here, sweetie. Chloe ran and jumped into her lap. Sarah hugged her tightly. Mommy is crying because something very good happened. What? Sarah looked at Daniel, who smiled. Uncle Daniel helped Mommy get some money that a bad man owed her, and now we're going to be okay. Chloe looked at Daniel. Are you a superhero? Daniel laughed. No, little one. I just did what was right. Chloe let go of her mother and hugged Daniel. Thank you for taking care of my mommy. Daniel felt his eyes sting. He hugged the little girl back, squeezing her with affection. Sarah watched the scene, her heart tight. He had done this. He had fought for her, without asking for anything in return, without expecting recognition, just because he cared. When Chloe let go of Daniel and went back to her room, Sarah stood up. Daniel stood up too. They stood there, close to each other. I don't know how to thank you, Sarah said. You don't need to. Seeing you relieved is enough. Sarah took a step forward and, without thinking, hugged him. Daniel was surprised for a second, but then returned the embrace. He held her tightly, feeling her warmth, her soft scent, her accelerated breathing. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. I'll always be here, he replied softly. Always. They stayed like that for a long moment, embraced, connected, and something changed. The distance that had formed between them began to shrink. Sarah realized she didn't want to fight what she was feeling anymore, and Daniel realized that she might feel the same way he did. When they separated, their eyes met and held. Neither of them said anything, but they didn't need to. Everything was there, in the look, in the silence, in the growing certainty that what they were feeling was real, and that maybe, finally, they were ready to admit it. A few days after the lawsuit victory, Sarah was at home organizing papers when Daniel showed up. It wasn't his usual visiting time. He had come straight from the office, still in his suit, his tie a little loosened. Hi, she said, opening the door. Is everything okay? I didn't expect you today. It is. Can I come in? I need to talk to you about something. His tone was serious, but not worrying. Sarah felt her curiosity grow. Of course. Come in. Chloe was drawing at the living room table. She looked up and smiled. Uncle Daniel. Hi, little one, he said, gently ruffling her hair. What a beautiful drawing. It's a unicorn with wings. Perfect, he said, smiling. Sarah poured him water, and the two of them sat on the sofa while Chloe remained focused on her drawings. "So, what did you want to talk about?" Sarah asked. Daniel turned his body toward her, facing her. "I've been thinking a lot over the last few days. About you, about your situation, about everything that happened." Sarah tensed. "Daniel, if it's about the lawsuit money, I already told you I'll pay you back." "It's not about that," he interrupted, raising his hand. "It's not even about money. It's about a job." She frowned. "A job? Yes. You're still looking for work, right? Every day. But still nothing." Daniel took a deep breath. "Sarah, we work very well together. You are organized, intelligent, you learn fast. And I was thinking, you could work at my firm." Silence fell in the room. Sarah stared at him, trying to process it. "You're offering me a job?" "I am. I have an opening for an administrative assistant. The person who worked there left a few weeks ago, and we haven't filled the position yet." He leaned forward slightly. "I want you with me, Sarah, not out of pity, but because you are strong, dedicated, and you deserve a real fresh start." Sarah shook her head, confused. "Daniel, I can't accept this." "Why?" "Because it's too much. You've already done so much. The rent, the food, the lawsuit. Now you want to give me a job. This seems..." "Seems what?" he asked, firm but gentle. "It seems like charity." Daniel took her hand. "This is not charity. It's a real position, with a real salary and real responsibilities. I'm not doing this because you need it. I'm doing this because the firm needs someone competent. And I trust you." Sarah felt her eyes sting. "But I don't have experience with law." "So what? You'll learn. It's organizing documents, scheduling, answering phones. Nothing you can't do. I'll teach you everything." He squeezed her hand. "I trust you, Sarah, and I want you to trust me. Not as someone who is saving you, but as someone who wants to see you grow, who wants to see you truly independent." The tears began to roll down her face. "What if I'm not good at it?" "You will be, I know you will." Sarah looked at Chloe, who continued drawing, and then looked back at Daniel. "What about Chloe? Who will take care of her?" "We'll adjust the hours. You work from 9 to 3. When she gets out of school, you pick her up." "There are solutions, Sarah. We'll figure it out together." She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision. "Are you sure? Are you sure you won't regret it?" "Absolutely." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. All the closed doors, all the rejections, all the despair. And now, finally, a door opening. "Okay," she said, opening her eyes. "I accept." Daniel's face lit up. Seriously, I accept the job." He smiled, genuine and relieved. "You won't regret it, I promise." "When do I start?" "Monday, if you can." Sarah laughed, through tears. "I can." Chloe looked up at them at that moment. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Sarah wiped her tears and opened her arms. "Come here, sweetie." Chloe dropped the pencil and ran into her lap. "Mommy got a job," Sarah said, her voice emotional. Chloe's blue eyes widened. "Really? Really? At Uncle Daniel's office?" Chloe screamed with joy and jumped up to hug Daniel. "We're going to work together." Daniel laughed, hugging the little girl. "Your mom is going to work with me, yes." "This is the best day," Chloe cheered. Sarah watched the scene, her heart warm. For the first time in a long time, she felt that things were working out, that there was a future, that there was hope. On Monday, Sarah woke up with her stomach churning. Nerves. She spent more time than usual choosing her outfit. She wanted to look professional. She chose simple black pants and a white blouse. She tied her hair in a low bun. She looked in the mirror. "You can do this," she told herself. She dropped Chloe off at school and took the bus downtown. The office was on the 10th floor of a modern, mirrored glass building. Sarah entered the reception area, intimidated. "I'm here for Morgan & Associates office," she said to the receptionist. You can go up, 10th floor. She took the elevator up, feeling her heart race. When the doors opened, she saw the elegant sign, Morgan & Associates, Law Firm. She entered. The place was organized, clean, professional. Several desks, computers, shelves full of law books. Daniel emerged from one of the offices. He was in a suit, formal, but he smiled when he saw her. "Sarah, welcome." "Thank you," she said, nervous. "Come, let me show you everything." He introduced her to the other people, 2 lawyers, a secretary named Margaret, and an intern. Everyone was friendly. Margaret, a woman in her 50s with grey hair and a warm smile, hugged Sarah immediately. "Welcome, dear. Anything you need, feel free to ask." Daniel showed her her desk. It was next to his, organized, with a new computer. "This is your space. I'll explain everything to you gradually. At first, it's simple things. Organizing files, scheduling meetings, answering the phone. You'll get the hang of it over time." Sarah sat in the chair, still processing that this was real. "What if I make a mistake?" "You will make mistakes," Daniel said, smiling. "Everyone makes mistakes at first, but you learn and you improve. I'll help you." The first few days were challenging. Sarah made mistakes. She filed documents incorrectly. She forgot to pass on a message. She got confused with the system. But Daniel was patient. He explained again. He taught calmly. And Margaret was an angel. She showed her all the shortcuts, taught her the tricks, explained how things worked. Sarah absorbed everything like a sponge, determined to learn, determined to prove she belonged there. Within a week, she was more confident. Within 2 she was answering phones naturally, organizing documents without mistakes. She even helped with simple legal research. Daniel watched with pride. She was better than he had expected, quick, efficient, dedicated. And working alongside her every day was both good and difficult. Good because he saw her. He talked to her. He shared the day. Difficult because he wanted more. He wanted to hold her hand. He wanted to tell her what he felt. But he waited. He respected her time. At night, when Sarah picked up Chloe and returned home, the little girl would ask about work. "How was today, Mommy?" "It was good, sweetie. I learned new things." "Is Uncle Daniel nice?" "Very nice." "He's a good boss." "I like him," Chloe would say, smiling. "Me too," Sarah would reply, and she realized it wasn't just gratitude anymore. It was something bigger, something that grew every day. She was falling in love with him, slowly, but inevitably. And deep down, she knew he felt the same way. All they needed was courage, for both of them. 6 months later, Sarah woke up to the sound of the alarm clock and smiled before even opening her eyes. It was no longer that heavy waking up, full of fear of what the day would bring. It was different now. It was hope. It was peace. She got up, showered, and got ready for work. The routine had changed completely. She entered Chloe's room and found the little girl still sleeping, hugging the old teddy bear. "Wake up, princess. Time for school." Chloe slowly opened her eyes and smiled. "Good morning, Mommy." "Good morning, love." As they prepared breakfast together, Sarah looked around. The apartment was the same, but it felt completely different. There was plenty of food in the fridge. The light was on without fear of the bill. There were fresh flowers on the table that Daniel had brought. There was true peace. She had been working at the firm for months now, and she was good at what she did. Very good. Daniel always praised her work, and Margaret said she was the best assistant they had ever had. The other lawyers trusted her. They respected her work. Sarah was proud of that, proud that she had succeeded, that she was building something for herself. She dropped Chloe off at school with a kiss on her forehead and went to the office. When she arrived, Daniel was already there. He smiled when he saw her, and that smile still made her heart race. "Good morning." "Good morning," she replied, feeling the familiar warmth. They worked well together, very well. There was a natural synchronicity. He would start a sentence. She would finish it. She would have a question. he was already explaining. And slowly, without quite realizing when it happened, they grew closer. Professional conversations turned into personal ones. Work lunches turned into lunches, just the two of them, laughing about silly things. Formal goodbyes turned into lingering hugs. Until one day, 3 months ago, it happened. They were working late. Just the two of them in the office. A difficult case that needed to be resolved by the next day. Sarah brought him fresh coffee. When she placed the cup on the desk, their hands touched and held. Neither of them pulled away. They looked at each other, and the world stopped. Daniel slowly stood up. Sarah did not back away. "Sarah," he began, his voice low. "I can't pretend I don't feel this anymore." "Me neither," she whispered. He moved closer, giving her time to retreat. She didn't retreat. And then he kissed her. It was soft at first, careful, full of emotion held back for so long. Then it deepened, and Sarah felt as if she were finally home. When they separated, she had her eyes closed, breathing deeply. "I've been waiting for this for months," she confessed. "Me too," Daniel replied, leaning his forehead against hers. "I love you, Sarah. For so long. I love you too." And that's how it began. Slowly, respectfully, but deep and true. They talked to Chloe the next day, carefully explaining that Uncle Daniel was now more than a friend, that they liked each other very much, that they were going to be together. Chloe had jumped up and down with joy. "So he's going to be my dad." Sarah and Daniel looked at each other, their eyes shining. "If you want him to be," Daniel said, kneeling down in front of her. "I do. I really do." Chloe hugged him tightly, and that's how they became a family. Not on paper yet, but in their hearts, where it really mattered. So that sunny Saturday, Daniel had planned to spend the day with them. He arrived early in the morning, carrying a full bag. "What did you bring?" Chloe asked, curious, trying to peek inside. "Surprise," he said, winking. Sarah looked inside the bag and laughed. "Hot dogs?" "Hot dogs," Daniel confirmed, smiling. "I thought it was fitting. It felt right." Sarah understood immediately. It was with hot dogs that everything began, in that square, months ago, when he saw them for the first time. "It's perfect," she said, her eyes shining. The three of them went to the small kitchen. Daniel began to lay out the ingredients. Fresh buns, sausages, various toppings, onion, cheese, pickles. "I want to help," Chloe said, excited. "Of course you do," Daniel replied, picking her up and putting her on the stool. "You're going to be the head chef today." Chloe laughed, that crystal-clear laugh, and gave a salute. "Yes, sir." Sarah watched the scene, leaning against the doorframe, her heart overflowing. Daniel teaching Chloe how to organize the ingredients. The two of them laughing, the golden light of the sun streaming through the window. It was so simple, so perfect. They began to prepare the hot dogs together. Daniel cooked the sausages while Sarah chopped the ingredients. Chloe organized the buns on the platter, taking the task seriously. "This one is mine," she said, marking each one. "This one is Mommy's. This one is for..." She stopped and looked at Daniel. "You can say it," he encouraged. "This one is for my dad," Chloe said, testing the word. Daniel stopped what he was doing. He felt his eyes sting. "Come here," he said, opening his arms. Chloe jumped off the stool and ran to him. Daniel picked her up and hugged her tightly. "I love you, little one. So much." "I love you too, Dad." Sarah turned her face and wiping away the tears that were falling. They were tears of happiness, of gratitude. Daniel extended his free arm to her. Sarah moved closer, and he pulled her into the hug too. The three of them stood there embracing in the small kitchen, with the smell of food in the air and the sunlight warming everything. A family, not perfect, but real and full of love. When the hot dogs were ready, they sat at the table. Chloe picked hers up with both hands, exactly like that first day in the square. "This is the best hot dog in the world," she declared, taking a bite. "It's because we made it with love," Sarah said, looking at Daniel. "And teamwork," Daniel added, winking at Chloe. He looked at the two of them, Sarah with her blonde hair down, truly smiling, Chloe with ketchup on the corner of her mouth, laughing. He had everything now: purpose, family, love. "I love you," he said. "You two are everything to me." Sarah stopped chewing and looked at him, her eyes shining. "I love you too." "More than I can explain." "Me too," Chloe said, raising her hot dog like a toast. "I love everyone here." They laughed together, that light, happy laughter, and they continued eating, talking, enjoying every second. After lunch, while Chloe watched cartoons in the living room, Daniel and Sarah washed the dishes. She washed, he dried, side by side. "Thank you," she said suddenly. Daniel stopped. "For what?" "For everything. For showing up in my life when I needed it most. For believing in me. For loving us the way you do." Daniel dropped the towel and held her face with his hands. "Sarah, I should be thanking you. You two gave me something I didn't even know I was missing. A family. A home. A reason to wake up happy. You saved me just as much as I saved you, maybe even more." Sarah smiled through her tears. "We saved each other. Together." He kissed her, soft, lingering, full of love and promises. When they separated, Chloe appeared at the doorway, smiling. "You guys are kissing again." "I am," Daniel said, picking her up and spinning her around. "And you'll have to get used to it because I'm not stopping." Chloe screamed with joy as he spun her. Sarah laughed, watching. Daniel stopped spinning and hugged them both at the same time. Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. Chloe nestled between the two of them. "We're a real family now, aren't we?" Chloe asked, her voice small but full of certainty. "We are," Daniel replied, kissing the top of her head. "The truest family there is." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the moment, feeling the complete happiness. Everything had started with a hot dog, with a kind stranger who cared, with a simple act of goodness that changed everything, and now they were a whole family. Daniel squeezed the two of them against his chest, feeling his heart full. "I promise to take care of you always," he said, "always." "And we'll take care of you," Sarah replied, looking at him. "We're a team," Chloe said, excited. "We are," Daniel agreed, smiling. And they were. There in that small kitchen, in that simple apartment, with hot dogs on the table and love in the air, a family was complete, a family that was born out of nothing, from a chance meeting, from kindness, a family built with goodness, justice, care, and true love. And they knew that no matter what came, they would face it together, because now they were one. A whole family, rebuilt, real, eternal, forever.